Okay. We'll go ahead and call to order the meeting for Monday, November 13th. We'll do roll call. Carrie Stuckey, that's me. Shane, is it Cardone? Cardone. Shane Cardone. All right. Kate is absent at the moment. Eric. Tom. Marshall. All right. So we'll go to the approval of the agenda. Any changes that anyone had? Questions?
I move to approve the agenda as written.
All in favor? All right, and we've got the approval of the minutes for our meeting on October 9th. Is there any questions or changes? Anyone?
I move to approve the minutes.
All right, all in favor?
Okay.
Do we have any public comments today? Okay. Moving right on then to our discussion items. Item A, advisory board, municipal code and bylaw revisions.
Okay, so excuse me, this is a follow-up to the draft documents we gave you at your last meeting. So since the last month's meeting, we have taken this to council to get some of their feedback at a workshop. Excuse me. So there's 3 documents. The first one is the uniform policies for boards and committees. And that's an ordinance that sets forth things that apply to all committees, like membership terms, residency requirements, having an ex officio member, the ability to have a student member, that there's staff support that supports the meeting, there's a liaison, and then also doing like the minutes. And then procedures for updating bylaws and the required training, like the public records and open meeting trainings that's required every 4 years, and then your annual work plan, which you folks are already working on. The second document is an ordinance that is specific to the park board. So this is what sets forth the park board's powers and duties. And a few months ago, Brian had you go through that exercise, and you guys expanded the duties. We updated the name of this board to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission. So that's the kind of stuff that's housed in there. Another thing that is in that is memberships of the boards. So some boards, obviously, like Marina, has Marina tenants on it. Some boards have members that aren't city residents. So for the Parks and Recreation Board, we didn't recommend any changes, so it's just the 5-member board, all residents of the city. And then obviously the ex officio council member, and then we put in their student representative. Once we come up with the process and procedure for that, then they could be a member of the board. I think we want to have.
I asked you last time, but I don't remember. Does the student rep count towards that 7 or additional to the 7?
No, it's in addition, so they're non-voting and not needed to make a form. And they typically would only serve, based on the information we found from past student members, they serve like just during the school year, so it's not even like a full year term. I think we could allow them to do that if they want to participate in the summer, but typically I think they've seen it for the school year. So we need to get a process together of how we work that out with the school, like, so we have a contact form. And the prior parks manager was trying to get it set up so they'd applied the year before, like when they were, I think it was only for seniors, so that they'd apply their junior year, but I think we still need to get that process worked out if we're limiting it just to seniors or, but that this ordinance gives the authority to have that position on the board. And then the final document is the bylaws and the rules of procedures. That's just going to set forth specific things to this board, how you want to run things, when the meetings are, what special meetings are, what work sessions are, when we post our agenda, and those types of things. That you'll give an annual report to council once a year. Talks about budget and expenditures, if that ever, programs like that arise. And that's it. So, I don't know if you had a chance to look at these, if you want to go through them, if you have questions. The next step after taking it to the board in November is to take these to city council as an action item. And I can tell you, I think one recommendation we will be making to the uniform code is we were trying to figure out a way to expand the residency. And we've had one suggestion to do folks who live in the city zip code and the base zip code, so folks on the naval base could participate. Or it could be just within actual city limits, so I don't know. That was just one board's recommendation for them. I don't know what the park board thinks about that. Just some of our community.
Yeah.
It's in proximity. Originally, we had said the urban growth area, but that's very small pockets, so.
I'd be open to anyone with the Oak Harbor zip code. There are those weird islands of county, but it's like I'm in city limits, so 3 houses down is out of city limits, and then 3 houses past that is back in. So I'd be open to that.
Then that opens up though. Pretty big. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just thinking. A lot of people are brought in, right? What's the,
If you do the zip code,
yeah,
well, it's North Whitby, not including the base.
right, so it's from Van Dam Road north to such as. What advantages are there to that?
Oh, well, I know like some of the communities are like Penco and that, they feel like they're part of the city. We also have like a business owner that owns a business in the city, but doesn't live in the city limits. So we were just trying to brainstorm how to get people who want to participate on the boards. Now, the mayor always has the discretion, and I think our recommendation will still be that any board, a majority of the members should be city residents.
And if we do that, I think I want to limit the seats that are not city residents.
Our general rule is majority has to be residents right now.
Or if the park board wants to be all city residents, we could write that into that specific ordinance and then not even adjust that.
Or you can say like one position can be a but within.
So what we had now with boards were very specific, like Marina, like
Yeah.
it's got this many positions, but this position too has to be the non-resident. This position has to be a boat rental, this one. So we're trying to make it more consistent of how we could do it without having to do. So, that's-
I mean, I think it'd be fine, but I think I would, for both of those zip codes, for me, like the base and I would want more than one of each, I don't think. I mean, just in general, if we're starting to talk about, because some of the stuff that we do, we might make recommendations that impact things like how taxes are done. It's also impacting, it's information to officials that they may or may not be able to vote for. So, having that as sort of advisory because they are impacted, because they're part of the community that's going to use things, but then also not. So it's overrun by people, and then they're already making recommendations for things that they're exempt to. I don't know, or for 2 people that they haven't been able to vote for. I don't know, that's just my thought off the top of my head, but it could be way out in the field. I accept that.
So currently, park board's only residents. It's been our practice.
How many boards and commissions have non-residents on?
Arts Commission, Marina, Historic, they all have non-resident components. Sometimes they have to be professional, like for Historic, there has to be certain professionals. And if it's professionals, then the mayor has the ability to waive. So the mayor selects the applicants too, so they, that person will take that into consideration. But those three all have something, like arts has, I think, right now, 2 non-residents. Planning has the ability, is it 3? Yes, so 3.
For the
Out of the
7
7,
member,
yeah.
yeah.
Planning had one where we had a business owner, but they weren't a resident even of Whidbey Island. So that, we were trying to avoid that by just saying a business owner or a landowner, because then we could get that. So that's why we were trying to come up with the zip code that's given out as a suggestion.
Are any of those, do any of the other commissions have anyone from the base? Zip code, or
Not currently, because right now it just says city residents, and the space is in city limits, kind of. But we had one applicant who lived somewhere out on Hallfield. They were actually on the base, but we didn't select them because they're technically not in the city limits. So, that was one.
Where Seaplane is in city limits, so. Somebody residing there. We don't have much jurisdiction since it's federal property. So somebody-
Is it worth the effort to change on a cost benefit kind of?
I think it's worth it to get outside, to get additional input. So, if we're gonna go from 5 to 7 member board, I wouldn't be objecting to have 2 people that could come from the zip codes, 'cause especially if we're gonna talk about the possibility of a regional park, that does impact them. So, yeah, all field is still right there. I mean, so I would be objecting to having 2 positions that would be allowed to be outside city limits, either one of them. 9277 or 9278.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my thought too, as we started doing regional stuff, but that's why I said one of each.
Yeah, or just, if we just open it up to 2, they can come to either one of those zip codes, yeah, because, we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves, say we can only allow one from here, one from here, but if we open it up to both, then it provides that opportunity.
Advantages by over specificity, so, yeah.
Yeah, and if it ends up being all residents on the board, then it's all, it's whoever's interested in applies. Limit who can apply.
I like how Eric said it, I'm with that.
And actually, speaking of that, Marina is going from 5 to 7 members as a recommendation that came out of council. We didn't really discuss this going from 5 to 7, but.
It's in here, Mikhail.
Oh, you
They
changed
said they
it.
wanted all of them.
Oh,
to
I'm
go to
sorry.
seven.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
okay,
it is in here.
okay. This took me-
Yeah.
So, yeah, so the uniform would be, okay, I got it. 5 with up to 2.
5 to 2. If you're gonna go to 7, you're gonna need more.
Yeah.
You're gonna need more, well, it goes from 3 to 4 for a quorum, but you're gonna need more flexibility, because 7's gonna be a little.
And
So
then,
they-
Arts
so the
Commission used to be 9, and then they never had a quorum.
So the uniform will stay as is. The park board code will change from 5 city limits, UGA, and then 2 out of the
no, I
zip
think
codes.
we'll change the uniform code to include the zip codes. We'll talk about it because that'll have to. So we'll talk about that. The one other thing that did come out of council is the terms. We're changing them so the terms will be, the positions will match, the terms will be calendar year, January to December. And then the positions will have positions 1, 3, 5, 7 expire in odd years, and the even ones expire in even years to keep the staggering. Because in the past, we've had, when someone vacated a seat, instead of just filling that remaining seat, sometimes they were reappointing them for both, whatever the term was, 3 years. And so our staggering cut off, so we're gonna clean all that up. When we take it to council, we will have a chart of everybody's terms, and we're trying not to cut anyone short, so we'll extend the terms to 25 and 26. But then council, it is suggesting a 2-year term. And then there'll be a 3-term limit, so you could max serve for like 6 years.
And a term limits.
There is a possibility, though, it says that you can extend that, you can apply to extend
The
that.
mayor.
Yeah, so it's not a hard and fast rule, it's a term that you could ask for an extension on that.
How do you feel about that, Brian, since you'd be intimate working with those people? Is that?
I'm not sure how much I like you guys.
That's why I asked the question. I mean, I knew where I was at on that list, but I've been like these two.
I know boards that are very anxious for, one or two people to reach out to limits. Sure.
Yeah, that's kind of why we were doing it versus the other.
Yeah.
Trying to get good people. on.
But then, there's other areas like I know, Historic Preservation Commission historically has trouble getting people on there. So, I think the more niched it is, the less they want to have term limits, because there's people with specific expertise. I think for this. It's so,
And so this would start January 1, so you'd have those on board would have.
when someone comes to the end of their term, is it a competitive process to renew, or is it automatic? I guess that's my question. If there's other people that want to come on board, say someone has been on, for 6 years or something like that, and we feel like, okay, we can use some fresh perspectives. Or is that just totally the mayor's discretion?
Yeah, it's the mayor's discretion.
That's the council. Once you reach their term limit,
Oh, once they reach their term limit,
once they reach that 6-year limit, it says upon a motion properly made and second, the city council may waive the term limit restriction upon majority of the city council.
I just know from right now, we didn't have anything. So sometimes it was kind of like if staff was getting along with the person, they said just keep them. When it came, other times we asked the mayor, this turns out this person wants to be reappointed, we have this many applicants. And they just picked. So this is kind of a new, so,
Yeah.
so like you said, it would be up to council, so we probably go to the mayor, say this person would like to be reappointed, we put it on the council agenda.
I think that's something, have the option. So if they want to stay on, you need the people.
It's productive. So this then starts starting on the 1st of 2024. Does that mean like Shane and I, who are even numbers, we end on 20, or are we gonna go to 2026?
26,
Okay.
we moved it out
That's
so
what I
that
thought.
nobody
I
would be.
understood. I just wanted to make sure.
Council didn't want to cut any ones,
Okay.
the terms that we tried.
You good with that, Brian?
Yeah, and actually on the park boards, I do actually like, it, there is an indenture to small. Until there's a council vacancy, that will just put you in council.
We will take those recommendations.
So then we've got item B, city administrator update on citywide priorities.
So I just printed them
I got it.
through the,
I
into
just
the
looked at
future.
the multitasking here. So I just gave you all our departments priorities because it was easy to, it was kind of parses in there. I was looking through on the short term, 23, 24, if there's none in part-time in my area. They're an executive and we can go right to parks and recreation. User plans, your feasibility for marine and dredging, redesign, a lot of work on that area. Brian's doing. 2, Mariners Haven property purchase, another marina issue we're working on. Recreation arts events, live enrichment programming, that's Brian's new programming, and he's interviewing a position coordinator right there. They've got the shuttle senior services on order. Hurry up and wait, kind of thing now when they do ordering.
You should get it in December.
Yeah. And then the roof is actually done, isn't it? But we've got the parking improvements. We're looking for grant funding for that. So
that a resurfacing or expansion or?
What we need to do, it has that hill in it.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is reroute it and take in the asphalt and get an entrance that's coming in off of Whitby.
Yeah.
And we have that curve that I don't know why anybody that did there for, doesn't even allow a car to go on the grass, but they can't go between those two parking lots because that little 6-inch curve, maybe Callie knows why they put it there. I don't know why they put it there. It's supposed to come on. And then that entrance where you first come in, we would just put a retaining wall there and make a better entrance in there. So that slips and falls on
Yeah.
that. And so, yeah, so I've got a good possibility that we'll get a congressional direct spending request on that. Larson liked it, I think last time I talked with him, pitched a whole bunch of them, and that's what he kind of like. I thought it's a multi area that in the school district, Northwood Pool Park and Rec usually benefits it. Big Brothers Big Sisters would benefit from it, so, but we just didn't fit one of the dimensional grants, so we're looking at funding off of that one. And then kind of going on to the mid one, this is kind of old, we haven't updated it yet. Brian did this like 6 months ago. Here, my page I did have on here, coming attractions under my items. One that was related to parks was the development for Windjammer, for Nugent Harbor Rights Memorial Parks. And Brian did a presentation to the council and kind of got some direction, and some of you were at that one. To resolve and figure out where we're going here. And then Brian's issues right here, that's what he did about 6 months ago. We're going to update it for the new mayor and in our upcoming retreat on the director's retreat on the 6th of December. So he's got the Park and Recreation Master Plan, Department Organization and Budget, start on park system improvements, accessories, public airplane, art plan, and trail systems. And Brian, you can elaborate on those if you want. So
Yeah, so, I mean, and really, all the ones that are now playing, I mean, we've completed a lot of that. And so we've moved up a lot of these coming attractions and are already working on that. Committee meetings are.
So one of the things I put it to 5, so a lot of people do is that number 6 just goes into the next one. So they can get 10 in, so sometimes it goes that way. Because I instead of going to 10 or a lot, I kind of just wanted to do top 5s, make it much simpler, but that's what kind of happens. And then Brian just kind of unfiltered and then put on there into the future some really broad ideas here: communication, community recreation center, performing arts center, and so on here. So regional sports complex, so just long term. And then moving on to the council, you got 2 in here. So one's the
Well,
old
I
one.
didn't give, those are the draft ones, so I was just gonna show it and not, we're in the middle of updating.
Okay, yeah, we're in the middle of updating. So she has the one we did before, the sheet with the yellow on the bottom. We just talked about the infrastructure projects that are down. And one thing, the 32 priorities, it's a lot easier for me to take them and just put them by, just to put them by category.
Okay.
And so just Windjammer Park was a major one on there. So we've got through that, and she's got a list of accomplishments. And so we made some big progress in the council area on that one. Partnerships, I think we're working on accessible playgrounds on your guys' list, enhanced programs, Harbor Heights, and then topsoil is really not I think there was some idea that we don't know whether we got the topsoil we had for Windjammer Park or not, so but we're just working that through. Let's just put on there. And then the aquarium is really related to, it's in utilities because it's the it's the all the interpretive center, thank you, interpretive center, so that kind of could be park related there. So really I'm just focusing on the higher ones. I don't know that the marina in downtown could go into parks and recreation too, some most of that's marina in the downtown, but the marina is a park there, so water taxi was one of the ideas that was put. And then restrooms, dredging, we're working on the expansion, downtown revitalization, we're working on that too. So, yeah, let's see here. It's kind of my update on city priorities. I did mention last time that there's certainly property ideas we're working on. Consulted with the council, some of the stuff I brought up, you guys are white, the council, so I don't want to get too far ahead on those ideas and possibilities.
Couple things maybe to just add on to that, you should be aware of is, the city's working on a multimodal transportation plan. The implementation of that puts in quite a few commuter trails as well as recreational trails. Sidewalk connections, especially around schools and residential areas. Saw some of the beginnings of that with the West Woodby street improvements. And then also Blaine is taking council a proposal for a federal relations firm, a lobbyist to help us with working with the Army Corps of Engineers on some marina projects as well as some larger city infrastructure.
Yeah, thank you. We did get approval for that. So 5 votes. So one council member voted against it, but 5 voted for it. So we'll move ahead. All it takes is a majority. So we'll move ahead on that. A lot of it's marina. That could be park applications. We'll have them involved in whatever we're working on.
I've worked with firms like this in the past, and they are well worth the investment. I mean, we in Springs we did a $7 million downtown revitalization that turned like old decrepit parking lots into these beautiful plazas that we programmed, and we had events and art type activations around. Got $1 million for an accessible playground. We did a couple of shoreline projects. Hopefully, we'll be able to leverage.
And we keep a list of projects we're working on for funding. The parking lot was one of them. It's on our list for the senior services center that I mentioned. And so we park and recreations, things on that list that we're looking at, and we'll share that with our lobbyists and for the opportunities. And then we have our grant administrator who does the writing of it, that goes the extra mile there with the lobbying and the kind of procedure around it and support and gives us ears and eyes in Washington DC all year long. So.
And you'll see on here the CDA, that Central Development Area. I guess is what we're calling it, the big triangle. We've heard that in some of our conversations of infrastructure. So it's coming.
There is a proposal that the Karaoke Society made on making a park kind of a slash food truck area in the old theater area in Jensen, north side and northeast side of Jensen and Pioneer, where the old theater burned down. That one owned by Jensen, so that's been kicked around. So I made a presentation to the council yet, but so it is being kicked around. So.
Bob wants to get it to put the new city Christmas tree.
All right.
That's fine.
So we'll go on to item C, subcommittee updates.
I didn't move as far as like sports facilities and
one thing that should be said is Tom and I have been meeting with some of the different kind of players in the facility use. We've met with football and soccer, and we're looking at getting meeting with baseball kind of outside of those meeting times, just to gather data straight from the sources of the board members, to kind of hear their immediate issues, kind of their midterm stuff, and then kind of what long-term and what goals they think they do, or what dreams are that they have, things that they could do that aren't being, that we don't have the facilities to match. So they have, the talent, the time, the want to, but we don't have the facilities. And so that's kind of the stuff that there's already internal sort of motivation for, that we can kind of get that data straight from them so that we know better how to choose our facilities. So it's not anecdotal. So it's not just from surveys of interested parties. It's not from concerned parents, but it's actually from the people that are doing the day in and day out work of managing those programs and have a place that they want to go and want to drive it, the things that they could bring to the city, both to generate revenue, but to generate greater morale, greater involvement, and hopefully create more excitement around some of these long-standing programs that, have gone through the sort of up and downs of COVID life and the rebound and the different challenges that come and go with concerns that people have about safety and these different things for sports that cause ebb and flow. So we just want to gather that information so we can bring it there. And I think a lot of the work that we've done in facilities, correct me if I'm wrong, have been a lot thinking about, okay, how do we spend money short term and what improvements are absolutely necessary versus where do we want to go long term, thinking about how we structure those two things that we have to hold in each hand. And then I think we spent a little time talking about, some of like Harbor Heights, some of the unactivated places as well, what can come out of those to increase city morale and engagement around parks and facilities. Does that sound about right, Tom?
You want to talk about council's feedback?
Yeah, for the workshop. So Brian presented, and you all were there, but Brian presented to council about sort of kind of what we want to do in Parks and Rec, specifically around the Harbor Heights property, talking about sort of a multi-use, sort of natural environment out there for those 76 acres. That would include a proposal that I presented that we worked on for disc golf courses and a significant trail network out there that would kind of activate that land and then provide some recreation for the residents on that part of town. Multi-trail use, figuring out the possibility of, walking, dog walking, running, maybe even mountain biking, depending on the safety concerns. And we brought a proposal, Shane, you haven't heard this yet, but that had the disc golf course design and the entire trail network design kind of in that all at once. And city council seemed to be pretty receptive to that idea, knowing that Harbor Heights is pretty limited based on its geography, what can be done, its topography, I should say, and then its proximity to the base as far as, not really being feasible to put lights there for a sports complex and things. And so I think city council sort of is like, yes, but we also then need to turn our gaze pretty significantly to creating a facility where those things can happen, where we can have lights, where we can have turf, where we can have, potentially indoor and outdoor facilities so that we can have safe spaces to practice. So we have less wear and tear on the fields. We can use these things multi-use and stop having all the issues with one sport damaging it for another and conflict and all of that. So a lot of positive energy, I think, around really making some big strides to improve facilities. And I think I sensed a sense of excitement, positivity, and urgency, which I think was all positive. And Brian gave a really good, pretty clear presentation on that. I think that helped. Am I missing anything else?
It was really good discussion, a lot of great feedback from council. I told them what I really wanted to get from it was, one, their thoughts around your proposal for whether it's in the short term or long term or however, but what they thought about the trails proposal, disc golf proposal, which they seem to be positive on. See that come forward. The second one was the urgency around providing additional fields in light of the school district wanting to eventually place a school at Fort Eugene, which was the whole purpose of the city, including that property, what the urgency was around it, and just some thoughts around locations and different things like that. Which was kind of interesting. I didn't get a lot of sense of we need to solve this like right now urgency, but we definitely can continue to work with the school district, and we definitely should identify opportunities for expansion of fields. And coming along with that was also getting a little bit of feedback and their feeling around the regional sports complex, which sort of the long-term vision of these fields. What was interesting with that, when we talk about locations, we got good feedback about they were okay with the idea of some property maybe south, not contiguous to the city and the county, but they really did like the idea of procuring additional land connected with Fort Nugent and kind of keeping, adding on to the fields that we have right there. So Blaine and I have been looking at that a little bit, but there's also a lot of feedback on having indoor facilities and year-round programming opportunities. So a little bit of a shift from what we've heard previously or and working on sports complex. I think those kind of go hand in hand. If we would build an indoor facility, we'd probably have it as a addition to outdoor field spaces as well. So yeah, a lot of good feedback, a lot of good directions to go. I think we can go ahead and go forward since we have funding in place to do a bid RFP for that trail system, and then bring that to council for additional comments and for approval. And then we probably will focus on the development of additional fields here with this.
Yeah, I think I was surprised at the amount of almost universal passion for doing this. It was almost like, that's what it was in the sense where there was just finally a passion where it seemed like everybody has some synergy on recognizing that this was long overdue. And I think that's maybe how I was trying to communicate that, which was exciting to me, because I know how easy it is to disagree, especially on things that cost.
We have RCO's athletic field grant. Application process all the time.
And I like the indoor, certainly support that. I guess my question is what goes first, the indoor priority or the additional fields priority?
Those are discussions we have in our subgroup meeting, and they're difficult to address.
Yes.
Those get complex, and I think that's why the discussion is kind of far-reaching with the council, because there's so much to be done, and so much we want to do.
Yeah.
And where's the money trade-off between getting things done now for the immediate benefit, for larger investment?
And I think a
And
lot of
we're
that,
working on that.
Yeah, that's the direction I kind of feel like that we need. I'm gonna assume we're gonna do regular fields right now, but priority and then look at the indoor is longer term assumption, but I'm not sure if that's the direction.
Budget is implementation, right? So
Yeah.
low-hanging fruit's easy to grab.
yeah. A lot of that determines on what kind of land we can procure too. I mean, if we're talking, a very large, flatter parcel, maybe south of town, where we don't have to put nearly as much in to earthwork, and site prep, well, then we have more flexibility. And if we can put these things on one footprint, both indoor and outdoor, we've done something, which seems to fit the virtue of almost every sports group that we've talked to, is they all want to have their stuff in one spot, ideally. Right, that's what causes the traffic problems in Fort Nugent, and that's, and down here at the baseball fields. So if we could find a way that we could put both of these things in one greater facility, then it's sort of which do we start first? Yes, and because it's building out the same complex, but if we can't do that, and then I think we have to figure out which one's the priority, at least as far as I see it. But I like the idea of south of town. We can do something flatter and then work on these in tandem.
We could go south of Fort Nugent up to 40 there, and there's another 40 coming from 24th.
Mhm.
That way, or you can go Monroe Landing.
Could be more safe prep at the Fort Nugent land, because we have Rolling Hills and Forest, Mineral Landing less, but then you have access to city stuff, but then what does that mean for wastewater treatment? What other costs we incur by putting in city limits versus not, and how does that work? And I think some of those will be the,
It wouldn't be on anything south of Monroe with city water or city sewer anytime soon, so it'd be.
Right.
So septic. And there's a possibility of tying into Penco sewer and water district too. So I don't know.
no,
It's not even in our joint planning area.
is that lot that was scheduled for development on the corner of Miller and Baldo? They were going to build a housing situation there. It's Massey or Alley Construction is going, is that going to get connected to, or was that going to be connected to city?
Miller and all.
Talking about the one right off 24th there.
No,
We
I'm
don't
talking all the way
We
down.
don't go down to Miller.
Okay.
It's not even close.
I-
Not even close.
Yeah, Eric-
Yeah.
Eric said it's gonna be on Civic, I just wanted to
Yeah.
ask and make
Waterloo.
sure.
Waterloo's as far as we
Yeah.
go. Down.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
We go down to Waterloo. So we have water down the sewer almost in the water. So I know the airport was, I kind of know that area from the airport discussion, and they were talking to some communication with Penco Water and Sewer District. So
And what challenges?
Sabrina's having a hard time hearing us on the
Oh.
video, so talk a little louder.
What challenges will we have though if we do something out of Monroe Landing with the airport being there? Even though it's sort of just recreational, and will that cause any issues for sports complex?
I don't know, I can't speak to that. I mean, depends on what property you're
Yeah, I just,
buying.
that
So
general area
it's not
is-
gonna be a
Shouldn't,
huge.
as long as we're not in the runway safety zone.
Yeah, I don't see it being a huge issue, and it's not like they're gonna have tons of planes coming in and out. I think they wanna widen it, so. On the existing property. So any property we purchase wouldn't be contiguous to it.
Sure.
I wouldn't do the Morgan property that's contiguous, it's kind of tied in with the airport anyway. Kind of very together.
Thanks, Mike.
I mean, even the county owns a 40 on Scenic Heights that they're leasing to non-Usal, so.
So I'm gonna speak to your question, and I think I made my pitch known at that workshop, is I fully support the indoor first, you know. But it all obviously is gonna depend on budget, but if we build out the 2 fields, we're building 2 fields for soccer essentially. You know, that really doesn't help anything else. But if we build an indoor, then we address the soccer, we address the lighting issue, we address the smoke issue, we allow for other sports. And so it really, and again, I understand it's all budget related, but you know, if we had an even playing field, we could do whatever we wanted, that would be my first pitch is, you know, because it addresses soccer and then so much more. So I really think that's long overdue in this community and something that would definitely be used any time of year, day and night, and by all of us. You know, pickleball, basketball, volleyball, soccer, baseball, football, softball.
So if you had the indoor, would you like it near a place where there were the outdoor
I
facilities?
mean, ultimately, yeah, I mean, that would be kind of the anchor to the outdoor facility is whatever our regional sports complex. But if that's not the case, and we can do something in town or adjacent to Fort Nugent or something, but ideally, it would be part of a bigger regional sports complex, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, it could be wherever we can locate it. The regional sports complex is going to be primary, the focus of that is outdoor fields, right? And that's what we want to have, the outdoor field space and lighting and that kind of stuff. So we can bring in soccer tournaments and softball, baseball tournaments, that kind of stuff. The indoor facility could go wherever it could go, in my opinion.
Yeah, pretty property to put out there because you'd be dependent upon water, sewer.
Exactly, yeah. You definitely want to have that connected to city utilities. Yeah.
It doesn't need as
much property though for it. Is it?
It's a big building.
It's a big. 4 or 5 acres.
Yeah, I think that would probably be sufficient, yeah.
We don't need to look for the 40.
Correct, yeah, it doesn't have to sit on 40 acres by any means. It's gonna have, the building itself is gonna have a big footprint, and then you're gonna need adequate parking, yeah.
10 acres, 5 acres.
That's something we have to take a look at. You know, what I recommended to, when I met with Eric and Tom, was that we do the kind of a feasibility study and, you know, and then we kind of put together some focus groups of like, what do we really want this to look like? And then we can come up with a plan and then figure out where we need to go for property and funding and that kind of stuff. But, you know, I like the one that's in Centralia, NW Sports Hub is kind of the idea that I've been following. And that allows for interchanging courts, interchanging fields. And so I personally would be okay in kind of mirroring that type of footprint is what they have there. But theirs is part of a larger 110 acre sports complex. And so, but it doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily have to be there.
Well, I like the feasibility issue. It is some investment, but if you really want it done right, put your investment up front.
Right.
I mean, hindsight 2020, I wish they would have done the feasibility for the Harbor Heights complex. And then and then it might have been, well, you know, it's a little bit more expensive than we thought.
It could even go in Harbor Heights, in all honesty, because it's not, we don't necessarily need that light, you know, we have the property, it could be built out there, it could be built in that other adjacent property we talked about.
Yeah,
That's
those
there.
parking lots, you could put them all down.
Yeah,
For the lighting.
yeah,
You could still do the parking lot and down, trying to aim it down for a ball field's a little different.
absolutely, yeah.
But aiming it down.
But for an indoor facility,
Parking
yeah,
lot, and then the noise isn't really an
it's
issue.
not an issue there either. Yes.
There's a ton of property for all the other stuff that wants to
Still have
around it.
Correct,
all the
yeah.
trails, the disc golf, the
The issue you have is you need a decent road, and you're talking $3 million. I would probably come off a hell
Yeah,
and buy those 10 acre parcels.
I
you and I
agree,
talked about.
I agree.
Is it gonna buy right away? Just buy the whole property.
Right.
So,
I think Ford did the idea.
south of Fort
A
Newton's
lot.
another area, 24th.
Yeah.
Can be so 2.9 right now, but we bought the right piece of property, you can open that.
That could all be researched and identified through the feasibility study.
Correct.
But how do you fund the feasibility study? I have no idea what it costs. Is it something to go on the CIP program?
Yeah, we'd have to put it into. That's where the whole thing, Brian can support, this committee wants to support it, and then the council member needs to support it when it goes to council and get the 4 votes to get it done. So it sounded like you had 4 votes for feasibility, so it sounds like the votes, I wasn't sure, but it sounded like you got some good feedback
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So it looked like we had, that's like there are at least 4 votes for feasibility. But making that the priority, and that's, you know, our job is to figure out what your goals are and how you implement it. So we get set the policy, and if the policy is going in that direction, we'll get working on it. I guess it's just a change from what I was
Sure.
before, but that's fine. At least I know we're supposed to do that. So we want to focus on that first.
The light situation wouldn't be a problem with an indoor facility at Harbor Heights, right? Because it's indoor.
Yeah, it's not in the crash zone, so it's fine. It's way far away from the crash zone.
Right.
Neighbors don't really like anything there. The 2 acre parcel people. That's why I'd rather go off the hill.
Probably go off a hill or two and then own the road and not make improvements to a county road that we're never gonna. Yeah, I would rather own the road, so we know what we've got.
Yeah, no matter what happens out there with that, acquiring those 2 parcels and making the grand entrance from there for that facility would be judicious anyway.
Well, and it makes sense, right, for people coming from out of town that are gonna use this. It's a much easier in if we say just you go down Heller and you turn in there as opposed to you gotta find Gun Club Road. I think it makes it easier.
If I hosted a disc golf tournament there, I'll have 100+ cars
Right.
minimum, not to mention vendors and trailers and, you know, I mean, stuff I can't do at Fort Midget right now, just with And so it'll get interesting, L1 and stuff, but that's just disc golf.
Right.
It's just a professional disc golf tournament, not to mention other things that we draw there, whether that's trail races or, not to mention if there was more.
It's not like retail, it doesn't have to be an SR twenty.
Hmm.
People will find it.
Right. Yeah.
If you're doing a tournament,
Right.
they'll find it.
Yeah, we'll get the chamber to bring out their wagon and drive people into town, man. Yeah. So definitely economic development. there.
So kind of next steps for this committee for that committee will be for public works and engineering, understanding what infrastructure we would have to be required to have with the implementation of the trail system. So we can find those costs and just make sure that the funding sources and everything like that to council. And then talk a little bit about the short, medium, goals and projects, which is citywide, but just understanding that better as far as the Parks and Recreation Department, what we're working on. And that kind of goes into the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So we've allocated out 80,000 for doing that this next year. Roadmap.
I feel like we're really getting some more firm structure on how we're going to vote on what we want to do. And that's what we want. It's just like getting to your final meeting. So the next one, we'll focus on one thing. We know where it's going to go. So the short, medium, and long term. It's good to get it all down on paper, but it also really helps us focus.
I think that came out of that committee, and we had talked about it here as well, was just partnering with the base and doing a site visit. I reached out to Nicole Ray and followed up with her. I'm still waiting to hear back from her.
I can always check out there and show you the stuff like, but I thought it'd be good for.
I can take him out there and show him.
The former base CMC, is still in, he's got all the connections out.
Yeah, I can have you meet with KJ, our athletic director, our N9 representative, show you the turf fields that we have at Constant Turner Park and stuff like that.
Yeah, so exactly. We wanted to just schedule a site visit, go out, look at the facilities, and back in the day, we had partnered with them on some league programming and different things like that. So as we start up this recreation division, we want to just talk about this. It's their mission, and we can partner with programming. Also, as we're looking at improvements of our own facilities, kind of get some practices. Hey, what do you wish you did differently with this turf field? All this kind of stuff.
Well, for our committee, our last meeting, we mostly focused on programming and marketing and things like that. Kate and I have brought some ideas about updates for the website or maybe adjustments that we can make. And then Liz has been working really hard on the activity guide, and I believe that's coming out January, the first one, with a limited mailing. I don't remember how many she said are getting mailed out.
I think we were looking at putting them in with the utilities.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's really exciting. And then Liz and I had met with Jen Gray, who is one of the rangers at Fort Casey. And we've also been discussing with Joy, who has the same title with Deception Pass, about collaborating with programming. So they do different programs throughout the year that we were trying to find ways that we could collaborate with them. For example, they do first day hikes, New Year's Day, where they kind of do guided hikes through their parks. And Liz and I were thinking we could maybe incorporate our park system and trails into that and kind of cross promote each other. Gosh, I don't know. What else did we talk about in that meeting? Mhm.
and marketing.
Yeah, that's the main.
Even on the interviews.
I have,
for
yeah.
the recreation coordinator.
We interviewed 4 different people, and I think we had 2 really solid candidates. One I think is, I don't know if you had talked to Liz about that any further.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we had one that we all kind of agreed on was our favorite out of the group, and then we kind of have a second runner-up. So I'm not sure when you're making that decision.
Yeah, I'm gonna call both of them and just kind of have to follow up with both
Sure.
teams. That's how we still feel.
Mhm.
And so we'll probably get as much as this one.
We didn't, it was mostly marketing and programming that we discussed in our subcommittee meeting. Right. So then we'll go ahead and move on to item D, Parks and Rec Director Report.
Let's see, so as mentioned, we're finishing up the selection of recreation coordinator. We have made the selection for the park supervisor, and his name is Brandon Cable, who will be starting on the 20th. So we'll do an introduction for you guys at the next board meeting. Let's see, we already talked about feedback from council on Harbor Heights, so we will take that to the committees. We have the city Christmas tree. We'll be picking that up on Thursday. We're looking to do lights on the 22nd and working with the Main Street Association on city lighting event here shortly after. The Department of Fish and Wildlife are doing that. It's an environmental, like a pollution assessment with mussels. So it's a survey they're doing. They'll be installing that on the 14th tomorrow. They're going to be doing that just off of the west side of Point Jefferson Park, in the harbor, and they do it at night. So I don't know if Sabrina's on. Just I can touch base with her. I don't know if we need to post something about that or not. Mostly they're concerned about areas where they're having cross private property to install these cages. This will be off public property, so I don't know that we'll be having a call. So they'll be putting out these cages with mussels. They do it over several months, and then they check the routine levels and give us. They're doing that all along the tidelands here in Washington. Just direct scientific focus on troubled areas. The pickleball RFP closed on Friday, as well as the art plan. We only had 2 submittals for that. I was expecting a lot more from all the calls we got, but a lot of them were construction companies. I think they're waiting on the implementation side. Right? So, but we do have a couple of submittals that we'll want to review. So I just need a couple of volunteers to help us do that as part of the review committee.
Facilities anyway, might as well right now.
I think that makes sense. That's what we're working on the sports fields. Which also, now that we have a member on, we need to assign you to one of our committees. So basically what we've done is we have a lot more that we're working on as a new department than we really can cover. Board meeting like this once a month. So we've broken up the board into little subcommittees that we meet as needed. So far, it's been once a month. I'm trying to be conscious of the best time. Since you all volunteer. But the main focus areas generally are sports facilities and kind of opportunities for underutilized parkland spaces and things like that. And then the other one is more around programming. They're looking and working on accessible playgrounds and accessibility and things like that. So kind of have them evenly broken out. You're welcome to jump in on one or the other.
The sports facilities. Okay.
This is a 5-member board, so 3 is a quorum.
Well, it's going to 7.
Going to seven.
It is. I just want to say for the next month, right now.
Yes.
So,
So we'll keep that.
I'm,
So you
I'm
join
happy
after
to
the
post
first of
it,
the
but
year.
so on January.
January,
join us. Got it.
that was really fast.
Okay, we met with Wendy, our grant writer, this morning, just to talk about the DNR Community Forestry Assistance application. So that is a let's see, 7 million available funding projects range 3 categories, up to 50,000, then 50,000 to 200,000, and 200,000 to 350,000. The application to date is January 8th. So this is the state's portion of their version of that Inflation Reduction Act forestry grant funding that we got, the 1.68 million. So that goes in line with that. We're working on projects we want to do around that. We are meeting with the Whidbey Island Conservation District on Wednesday, and we'll reached out to the various societies, see if they want to join in on that, just to talk about forestry planning, where we could partner with them and maybe leverage our grant applications and what they might be doing for grant applications. We do have some staffing support with this grant over 5 years. And the Conservation District is also going to be, they'll be hiring on a sustainability forester, I think is what they call it. I'm not sure what that is, but we're going to find out Wednesday and see how we can partner and do some joint projects together with that. So, super exciting. Probably something that we need to start addressing in this board once we have that agreement signed. We're still negotiating with the Forest Service on the scope because we have a match waiver as being a disadvantaged community. They're very picky on what that means and where that's located, and so we're going back and forth with them right now on it. But once we have that all settled, we'll probably discuss and bring that back on what projects we want to do. We're going to lead it out with a urban forestry management plan. So that will kind of say, okay, well, this is what we'll feedback, look for opportunities in the community, and kind of frame that with the available funding that we'll have to tell us where we want to focus those dollars. So that looks like things like access to green spaces, improvements like around Fred Marsh, trail improvements, pretty much anything we touch with Harbor Heights could fall under that. Flintstone Park improvements, which we want to reconfigure some of that space with the age statute of people. Erosion and shoreline also falls under that, but that is such a permit heavy and such a long, arduous process to do anything around that. I don't know that we'll include that as part of this one. We have a 5-year limit on these projects. And then right-of-way improvements, even some of the pocket parks that we know we want to renovate and just beautify. Pretty much anything that includes vegetation and trees. So a lot of opportunity. We'll talk more about projects. And we did not get the local parks maintenance grant, which was a super bummer. I was sure we would get that, but we were number 41, and I think they cut it off at 40. There were but that's out of like 165 applications, so it was super competitive. the total request was like 13.5 million, which was way more than what the state legislature had granted. But that's all good, because then we can now take that back to the state and say, hey, thank you very much for this funding. This was a great program. Look at all the needs. We'd like to continue and expand on this. So there's going to be more opportunity for that. So this was specifically targeted. We had 100,000 to assist with the ballpark renovations. We'll continue to go forward with those regardless. We can pull some out of general funds. So we'll just continue to look for additional funding. We have quite a few RCO grants coming up, and we have some other things we can get. Neil Tower is it's one of our only historic facilities in the city. It was being utilized, I think, by the county historic society. At one point, they were doing a museum in there. It hasn't been utilized that way for a very long time. We went to just a walkthrough to see what was in there, and it was a lot of like thrift stores, secondhand stuff. I think they were doing some fundraisers as part of that. But we are trying to get a historic preservation commission back on to the city. I think once that is established, as a park board, we probably should meet with them and invite the County Historic Society to have a discussion about Neil Tower and what we do with it. It is designated parkland. We have a little park sign up there. There are a few historic things there. We have some old wagon wheels. There are a few very old time pieces of equipment. And then there's a lot of just little history things. There's some Navy things. They have little tiles, I guess, from the
Have a little of everything in there.
what's it called? It's a special Holland has got those. So they do these special commemorative tiles, and they have like every single year. Anyway, it's an unused space. We keep it locked up. It's very small, but we don't quite know what to do with it. It's not even, there's not even a public road to it, right? I think
No, it isn't.
it's a private road, and we
Private
have
road.
an easement, I guess, to go through there, but
I would hope so.
so we do have this very small little parkland historic feature, and it's not programmed. So we have a discussion around it and what we want to do. It is movable. It was moved to that location.
Next to the roller bar. Next to the roller bar, like across from SARS.
Literally right across from.
The tower above it, but they put it into a metal slab and put up sheetrock and everything, so the building itself that you go into isn't really historic at all, but the building above it is.
Concrete room, yeah.
Yeah, they put that concrete room and it just really is a base, so, they moved it, it's not the original site, I think the apartment complexes were there. There was a group of people that formed the historical society that saved it, and then they all kind of died off and then donated to the city, so this isn't the first city where I've inherited a building with, that I've been at, similar kind of situations. Spent, I think, 2019, we painted the top part of it for $30,000, so it's in good shape, so. So I would like to see it in the park, more access is what I think. But it's not cheap either. Certainly probably good to know.
So we can have some discussions and do some planning around that. There is no doubt lots of opportunity for historical grant funds to do whatever we want to do with that. Let's coordinate with these groups once they. So we had a little bit of discussion and request, just talking about the Portland News and what their operating hours are. The request was to open them at 7. Right now we open them at 8. Our staff comes in at 7. They have their morning coordination meeting, and then they disperse out shortly after that. The park hours are actually 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. There's some difficulty with changing the opening hours. First, most is because we have staff that go out and do it. So either we need to bring the staff earlier or just not do that. The other issue is that, and what requires them to be locked, is we have wind issues down there. So there are no latches because it the wind just destroys them.
We broke one this weekend even, so we're getting a new one put in, or I'm scheduling for one right now. The wind just slams them so hard that it just shoots the loft bolt right out the end of the door.
So people don't always close it and it just gets it. So one thing we had looked at was timing locks. That doesn't really help if the doors aren't closed, but right now our PD is the one that locks them up at night. We lock up the gate and open up the gate in the morning. So we're going to have a discussion with PD to see if they can go ahead and open up the gates as well, since they're all shut off at night. I believe they're doing that at 5 a.m.
Yeah, they're real early. Depends, it's a hit and miss with them. Some depends on who's on their rotation. So a lot of the more senior officers, they know about when we need to have it open. Some of the more unseasoned officers, they don't know for sure. And sometimes get behind on it a little bit, but yeah, they do pretty good for the most part. We try to have them close them down in case there's someone in there. There's an officer there to deal with the person that's in there. So it's kind of a partnership, and we probably need to revisit that.
But that also goes to the other concerns that had about opening up earlier than 8 is that the bus drops off at 6:45 right there. So if we open them up at 7, it's exactly when we have people come in. Some of them are transients that are just looking for somewhere to hide for a while. And so they'll immediately go into this. Let's see. So Brian Jones took your guys' feedback from the last time we met. He also met with arts, or we met as an arts commission as well. Brian can make it to that one, but their feedback was mostly on the aesthetic side of it, looking at what that looks like. They like the idea of matching the existing facilities in the park, having kind of that stone look on the bottom, and then kind of matching that darker metal with the railing and metal pieces, and then having kind of the wood slat look of it, matching the same color of wood kitchens and bars. So it all has sort of a cohesive feel to it. That's the feedback. I'll get back to him on it. If you guys have any thoughts or comments.
I agree with that.
That's all I have.
So we'll go ahead and move on to member comments.
Come back to talk about the original plan with Harbor Heights real quick, because I feel like we made a plan and we kind of submitted the thing, and now we've gone, as we try to brainstorm this other like regional sports complex or indoor, now we're bringing things back a bit. And I think some of the thought is like, well, they're just trails or a disc golf course, and so we can just move this stuff. Well, that's not really the intention. The intention was to be able to reach and draw an individual sports complex as opposed to a team sports complex, right? We wanted to build stuff for the individual sports while also addressing some of the needs that our community had in their surveys about needing more walking trails. And also just the anecdotal that we see of all the people who are out running, walking all the time. It's the thing that we see most commonly used by every generation. And people are looking for places to walk, especially with our lack of interconnected sidewalks and things, finding better, safer places, as well as more natural environment in which to do it. When we approached someone for design, we approached top tier, one of the top 2 or 3 designers for disc golf in the country, in order to do this, to try to create a regional draw for that particular activity and sport that would be accessible for anybody at a beginner level, but also to the highest tier. And we were looking at building something around that, which would be the equivalent of like a Jack Nicklaus kind of style golf course. If we're going to talk about doing other developments on there, we're going to go back and revisit some of these other types of facilities, then we need to revisit this entire plan, because just because something is easy to move doesn't mean it should, right? We shouldn't go along and design something and design a park out like we have, only to say, well, because it's minimal impact, which is the whole point of putting these kind of activities out there, that we should just then relocate it. That's exactly what happened at Fort Nugent, which made the park unsafe for these activities. And it just wouldn't be, I don't think, the best interest to hold these two things together. If we're gonna look at this as a possible site for indoor sports complex or some other thing, then we need to just bag this other idea and not do it. It would be better to not do it than put it in and then take it away, or, render it outside its original created idea by taking up a significant acreage of that, these other things. We need to do these other things as well, but this was a use to activate a park in a different way, so we could turn our attention then to finding out a better way to solve the sports complex on a better piece of land, or that would be more suitable to development. Either way, I think we have to get sports thing done indoor and outdoor at some point as well. I just don't want to create a park that we're just then gonna take away because we deem it as impermanent due to the lack of structure. It's exactly the lack of structure which makes it attractive for that particular use on that particular environment, and would give us a unique park in that space and allow us to develop the park in such a way that allows us to cover over maybe for the lack of the feasibility study and some of these other things that happen in a way, provide again, another park that's not focused simply on team sport. And then again, something in an economically disadvantaged area of our town as well, to provide some easy low cost options for engaging recreation in a healthful way.
If you're building it coming in on Belwap, I don't see that being an issue, because if we do a sports complex, we're gonna come in off of.
My understanding was we take all 75 acres. No, is that the plan? It's gonna be all 75 acres.
That's my question, what's the footprint of the trail system compared to the entire space?
Yeah, well, we had talked about, that was depending on how significant we wanted to go. When I made the presentation, we were talking about the presentation that we approved. We were talking about building, the footprint the designer gave was 1 to 2 acres per hole as a standard. Now, the more trees you have, the less per disco, right? But we also had the concerns about a perimeter trail. So we had access for emergency vehicles into the place should we have any need for that, right? And then maybe some bicycling things. The other idea was how much trail can we get out of that to allow us to host other types of events, such as 5Ks and some of these different things that could be done out there, as well as we talked about nature education along the way as well, so that we could do some of that to provide an educational outlet. In addition, talking about that, the real situation is well, how good do you want the trail network to be, and then that would determine how much you want to do. We can do whatever we want. We know we want to put a parking lot in there, obviously. We want to put a green space in that would allow for gathering, right? We want to have some green space or to have some shelters and some of that kind of stuff that would allow for gathering, families to do things, whatever it might be, some open play space. We obviously don't have a complete plan. We have a designer who wanted to create the entire plan, and that would be based on the guidance of the powers that be. My only thought is I want to make sure that we build something and then come later and build something on top of that. Once something's built, taking it away is tough. And we just want to make sure we have a complete plan for how we're going to use it when we do it. And that's the only thing I'm concerned about, because we have a history of making a plan and then finding out it doesn't work and then needing to come and do something later. And these are the situations that we're trying to avoid, which is why these underutilized parks were sort of low-hanging fruit. We say, no, we actually can put a coherent design in. We're going to do it, whatever that design looks like, whether that's acquiring the property off Heller and building this really cool indoor sports complex, something completely different altogether, or nothing that we originally approved. It doesn't really matter, but we wanted to get that low hanging fruit, activate this underutilized space, show that we can put together a coherent design, stick to it, do it at a lower cost. And then demonstrate that that can be done to build morale in the city for some of these future really important things like what Councilmember Marshall has just expressed as far as an indoor sports facility and stuff. And so it was sort of it was a test case in that manner, in addition to being a really good use of that land. No, if we don't want to do that, that's fine.
It's a good issue to bring up. It's a good issue to bring up now. Perhaps I would not touch on it either. And all this thing. I mean, one of the things with a sports complex with the indoor outdoor mix is that creates activity, a lot of activity. And the areas I've seen elsewhere that have that kind of a situation, they also have a trail system that goes off of that. Not major, not complex, not maybe heavily wooded, but it kind of ties in. So I think you get more use out of some of them. And then the other question I have, can we separate the disc golf from the trail system? I know we were looking at putting them together, and that seemed like a good place. And it seemed like a good way to do something fairly soon that we could show benefit to the property. I don't have an answer. It's absolutely right.
Problem is, we have a feasibility based upon outdoor facilities, is the one we get. Within geography some, but if you want, yeah, some. But we're doing a different approach, and so I can't answer that. The sooner we kind of get an idea of what a location would be, the better it'd be. And there always is a risk. The issue I have, there's a lot of acres there. And so it's not like it's 20 acres in Port Nugent where you have limited things. So on the plus side, if you have to go back further for more holes, you've got that ability to do that. On the ridge, and you got the other side coming down.
Or should be getting more acreage to get access to it too, potentially.
If we were to do the acreage to be access, that would be more for the sports complex.
I just went,
About 20 acres going to it. But the only question is, are we buying 20 acres of a property? We have to, we need to kind of figure out the direction. We've been zigzagging here, and that's the difficulty I have. Is the direction of council's change, and so we need to lock down what we're doing and give it the direction that we're going. Say it's easy to hit. It's hard to hit a target when it keeps on moving. So yeah, so let's get the target of move there. So you're not talking a huge. There's some time frame there. Yours is a lot faster. Could go on, the further north you go, the better you are. Away from the sports complex, but I don't have a topography and we've never looked at it from that point of view. It's a whole different thing. So, but I think the direction we're going to go is look at feasibility sooner rather than later. And that will answer your question. If you want to hold off on some of the stuff, just to let the feasibility for the sports complex be kind of so you don't up against it or have to change, and that's what you're going to have to do. Otherwise, you risk and going one direction and going another direction and having to pivot.
I think my comment is more in lines exactly what you said, like this. So the thing is, when we first even had that conversation at the workshop, as far as I was gauging council's time, I said, "Oh, this makes sense because it's this." But then what got brought up, like at Councilman Marshall, was something that was super exciting and really necessary, was this indoor sports complex as part of a regional sports complex thing. And so then, because we went to that, which is super exciting, and our imagination also followed it, which is good. Now you cast vision and all that stuff. And so then we went back, taking away from that other thing that had momentum and just recircling around. I just want to make sure that we do it once, we do it right, we do it cohesive and comprehensive, so that we're not creating something that changes and alters and gets taken away. And we have some of the issues that we've experienced with what we've done at Windjammer, where people have been upset even though they saw improvements in services, and some of these other things there was upsetting because it was unclear to them whether it was actually unclear or not. It was perceived as unclear, it was perceived as sort of provisionist, and some of it was ad hoc. And As a result, there was some negativity there and some lack of trust, that was built. And I think my perspective is we want to make sure, especially because we have such limited funds to work, we want to make sure we get all these necessary things. But we want to make sure that we do it in such a way that people don't become used to one thing, they find out that now it's going to be another thing. And then we don't really earn trust, even though we're going to be building some really excellent facilities. Because we do want to have the excitement, as much potential buy-in as possible for something that will have a massive economic impact.
So I think the difficulty with that is that you have an opportunity with land that have gone for a specific purpose. Cost prohibitive to do, looking at pivoting on location or how we do that. You have an opportunity now, you have the funding in place, you have the land, you have council support to put in these trail systems. But the timing, but we know that we do need fields and we want an indoor facility. Where we put that is, it's going to take a while. I'd love to build it next year, but that's just not, I know from experience that, really what I'm going to be aiming for is the budget cycle after this next budget cycle, which is going to be 2027. We need to do a feasibility study. We need to do a Parks and Rec master plan. Prep for that. Maybe Harbor Heights is the location for it. We have the land. I really only need about 20 acres to make that. To put in an indoor facility and have the supporting outdoor fields. 20 acres. You could scale that up or down depending, but that will give you a good size facility. We had talked about the center and the pool are coming near the end of their life. That's kind of central located area. We have some opportunity, to work with the school district. Maybe there's a land swap there with their transportation field. Who knows? I think there's opportunities there, and that is a pretty ideal location to build something like that. Maybe it's not contiguous. But that's going to take a bit of time. Is it? I think it's going to be very difficult to say we are dedicating this space to this one monopolized purpose for perpetuity.
No.
Especially since we still need to figure out the access point. The problem is with the larger we build the trail system and the more successful it is, the more we're going to push up against having to put in infrastructure that then becomes astronomical. Prices until we're ready to make those access roads. So we're in a little bit of a catch-22 as far as that goes. If we want to put in the two cores, freshly designed for a regional draw, how do you support that? Where do people park? How do they access it? Do we need restrooms? Do we need anything that has to do with grading or storm drain? Like just kicks in a lot of the things that are making Steve Schuler fearful anytime we have this discussion.
We want to build a park outside the city limits, so we don't have to comply with our own storm drain.
Oh yeah, when we brought up that idea, he almost jumped on the table. It's like, that's a great idea.
I'm telling you that, isn't that ironic? That's just totally, it's just backwards, but it is the way it is, so.
But it shows some of the inherent challenges.
Rather than that, so.
I'd probably take the win and let's kind of move forward with. And maybe do it in stages, maybe we don't build out 2 18-hole, start with one and some trails. I don't think we know the footprint yet, and I don't think we will until we actually do the design. Right? I don't think the whole 75 acres should be a disc golf course.
No,
but
that would be foolish.
So I think it's part of the design, keeping in mind that there might be other development uses, other types of trail systems, or possibly forcing some of that for whether it's fields or a facility or someone. That's just some of the parameters of doing the design.
And again, my main concern is that we stay coherent, we stay focused, we do the thing, and if we have to make changes, we have to make changes, but just recognizing that changes potentially at cost to the community. That's totally fine. I mean, the better location for an indoor facility out there, closer to probably Heller anyway, as you all have mentioned. I just want to make sure that while we have these different levels of passion for different level of things, we still stay focused on all of them at the same time, knowing that the big things was what Councilman Marshall brought up. Like that's the crown jewel, and like that is going to be the main thing. It's going to be the biggest benefit to the city, but that also these other little things, whether it's adaptive playground, whether it's some of this other stuff, that we keep the same focus and stuff for those and don't move them down, knowing that we also have this big
No,
amazing thing. That we
I agree. A rec center is not going to solve all the needs in the community. There's not going to be one amenity that's going to do that, right? If you really want good quality of life, you want, that economic vitality and wellness, everything that comes with the benefits of these recreational amenities, you got to have a holistic and comprehensive offering. It's the movie theater, it's the teen hangout place, it's birthday party for 9-year-olds location, right? It's the fitness center that I can go do my yoga and and my spouse can go do bench pressing or we go do a lunchtime basketball group. It's a space to have weddings and conferences and trainings. It's naturalized areas that you can go and just feel like you're not in the city and without having to drive out to the state park. You go take the family on bikes and go to the trailhead and you can walk around these beautiful green spaces and reconnect with nature. You gotta have everything.
Yeah, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying I'm going to die on some hill for how that worked out. I die on the hill for getting a regional sports complex of some sort, because I think that's so vital. But again, I'm not married to that idea. I just want to make sure that whatever it is that we're all doing, that as other new things come along that deserve our great attention and focus, that we also keep the other stuff that we're doing with a similar focus. So we make sure that we do this, and especially as we continue to try to build community trust with some low-hanging fruit, that we knock those things out of the park, so that the other asks, the bigger asks become easier.
I don't 100% agree with you, and I don't want to build something out and just have to go and do it all. I never once envisioned that it was going to be all 75 acres. So we built it out at 30, 35 acres. That's fantastic. That just gives us additional properties in that we can work with. Some of these other things that we like to do as well.
Parks and Rec master plan. Didn't play it very heavily here.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think really going to be the challenge is what is the scope going to be for we were just talking about
Indoor facility, indoor facility, or
no, the plan. I mean, if we have somebody come in and
yeah,
develop
design.
Feasibility.
feasibility, so that was the word I was looking for. So what is the scope of the feasibility study? That to me is going to be the real challenge. Is the feasibility study going to be only for a sports complex, or is it going to be for a sport complex and tied on disc golf or trails, or a feasibility study only for Harbor Heights? Or I think defining the feasibility study is going to be the challenge.
Well, feasibility study would be for the
Indoor sports center.
And we would limit it to that.
Yeah, right, because basically what you
And we
got.
wouldn't say an add-on disc golf.
Oh, yeah, and that's what the feasibility study will do. It'll look at, what amenities are going to draw to make this basically sustainable. Is what you're trying to get to. What's the equation that's going to make this sustainable for the city? And that's going to be, developing a pro forma with, okay, what's the revenue streams we're going to get to this? How will that be able to cover our debt service and things like that?
And what activities should be involved?
Yeah, that'll be part of it. Yeah. It'll be part of it.
How does it take to get something like that going? Like to get prepared to do a feasibility study?
It takes a grant.
Yeah.
So
CIP.
yeah, I put it in our capital improvement plan, and so budget for it.
So that'd be the 2027 then?
Well, we'll start doing, planning for next year's budget in July.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
July.
But you already have kind of a vague one, we called it parks, what do we call it, parks improvements or something.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we have 80,000 for Parks and Recreation master. plan.
We took the Harbor Heights one and just renamed it more general because we didn't know the direction we go. So that's all funny. That's what we did, so.
Yes, the feasibility study become part of the master plan. We need the master plan and then fill in the feasibility study.
Yeah,
for the master plan.
Yeah, you'll do the master plan first. The feasibility study is going to be much more focus on, you know, what should the design look like, you know, how big should it be, how many members, you know, what's going on. Much more specific to it.
Does we do some predictions too, of the future growth and that sort of thing too, that kind of study?
Cities are notoriously bad at like building things for the needs of today and not the needs of tomorrow. So it almost, by the time it's finished being built, it starts becoming obsolete.
Right.
It's called cost engineering.
So does that mean that we can find spaces in the budget like for next year to begin to approach it, or in 2025, 2026 to begin to wiggle the feasibility study in there based
Yeah,
on what you're saying?
Yeah, we'll talk about this next year. Where we want to try and aim for.
I'm just curious, trying to understand the process. Thank you.
Any other member comments? Let's move on to item 7, determination of future agenda items.
Is there anything that you'd like the city council, you think, would like input from us to here to do for future agenda items or from any of our subcommittees that would be helpful?
Yeah, I noticed on the,
Your work.
these revisions, there's a work plan meeting with council. Do we have any idea like when that would be or what
No,
they
we were-
want for?
We
for
were
what that
thinking
work plan-
after the first of the year.
Is that a retreat thing?
They have the routine trainings, right? I don't know what-
No, like where the board would meet with council or present their, like, right now, the boards haven't been coming regularly
Oh,
to
okay.
meet.
Well, that's-
Well, so with the new regs, I think that is in the new year, the committee will come up with their plan, what they're gonna do for the year. They can either present it at a council meeting or do a joint meeting like planning commission's having,
Okay,
some,
got it.
some work sessions. But I think we need more engagement for the groups at least once a year to meet. You know, between the committee and council. So that's what we were envisioning, but it's. Yeah.
Do we need to do discussion around that then, to build something for that?
Well, we just kind of got an update at that workshop.
Yeah.
You know, so if we could do that kind of biannually maybe, where we just get an update, you know, whether it be, we had a joint planning meeting with the planning commission just recently. Then we got an update at a workshop on parks. And I think that just helps us on councils kind of stay in tune with what you guys, or what everybody's working on. You know, what future needs are, what we can do to help assist you and that kind of stuff. So I can't think of anything immediately that we would need or want information on. I feel like we just had a very good update at workshop, but you know, continuing that kind of dialogue and those conversations, I think are extremely helpful for both parties, both for any of the commissions as well as for councils.
Yeah, it was good to see it. To
Yeah.
see you all debate it, not around was certainly helpful, I think, for me.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
So it has in here, annual work plan. Each board, commission, and committee shall present an annual work plan to the city council for approval in a format and within parameters determined by the city council. Every department is doing a department update for council once a year. I think so I don't know if we want to do that in conjunction with that near the same time, or maybe offset it so you have a work plan check-in around this time next year, you know, in the full opposite year from the department update. So that kind of
I just want to make sure that our work is useful and on target, so that the stuff we bring to you and the time that we spend is just, it's most advantageous to allow you all to be able to best do your work, so. That's
So
all
I
care about.
can't speak for all the
Yeah,
council,
of
but
course not.
what I would like to see personally is kind of what the next plans are for Windjam. Where are we going with that? What's phase 2? What's that? We did a study or survey, to ask the community what their input is, what they would like to see for phase 2. Where are we at in that process? What are next steps? What are we working on to get Windjammer to that next phase essentially?
Knowing what we know too about this windmill project, the momentum that's growing behind that, I think that's an idea too, because that helps. As neat as an edifice as that would be, it'll be, it gives us some contour from which to work out from too, which is cool.
Any other future agenda items?
Can I ask a question, Tally? Is there anything that you need that we could be supporting you in both, this commission here or council or?
We have made such leaps and bounds this I feel in the last year, probably since Brian came on, that we're getting much better direction now. We're able to focus on it. I spend a lot more time focusing on projects, trying to line different tasks up and get them done from outside help as well. I'm looking forward to Brandon coming on. This is the stuff we've been needing for a long time. So we're moving forward in good directions. We got to get good foundations laid for our projects coming up, and just discussing what you guys are discussing here today, I'm going, okay, now I can see a path forward. So excellent. I like what I hear here. So keep it up. Thank you.
Is it possible that we could begin, and I don't know what this subcommittee or here, the conversation about parks use between the different organizations that use it, how to have better agreement synergy between them? Because there definitely is friction, and I think knowing kind of the situation we have as far as our turf and the lack thereof of actual usable pitch, and figuring out how to best schedule these things across the seasonality and to limit, unwanted destruction and safety issues that come along with some of that stuff.
Yeah, so that's something we're working on right now. And Ryan kind of on some-
Oh, okay.
So we had Ryan,
Just wait then.
in utilities that was doing this scheduling. Since he's moved over to Public Works, we brought that in-house now, transferred that over to Parks and Rec. But Liz is doing some of that, but Brandon will be doing the schedule. He'll be doing the park rentals and our new sports coordinator will be doing the sports field. But not rentals. So yeah, once we get those two positions on, we'll have kind of everyone's all right. This your part of it is your part of it. We can talk about it in our sports. When would you guys like to do your next meeting? I know we're coming into the holidays, so I don't know if people are going to be out of town. We have some work updates here.
So, I don't know, without Kate here, I'm pretty open, I guess, so.
Okay, want me to just shoot you guys an email
Yeah.
with maybe a couple of suggestions?
Sure.
You guys are all here right now. Would you like me to do that as well?
Well,
or-
we wish January as soon as we can.
No, but I mean, we can meet, we just have to.
I was making a joke, but yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot going on
What are we talking about now?
for the facility subcommittee.
Yeah, we have a date, right, for November 27th.
Yeah, we already had a date for November 27th at your office. Surprise. Weird too. You said you're buying breakfast and bringing coffee. You don't have that note, Brian?
It's making me cook.
Nice.
So we're good there and I'll just.
Can't
Okay.
tell. It's so bad.
All right, anything else before we? Okay, let's go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.